Hello everybody and welcome to the new Simply Endo podcast.
My name is Dave Baker and I'm here with Rob Masters.
The plan is for this that each month we're going to chat to people within the dental industry and share their story.
This is a new exciting idea we've had now, and we're looking forward to welcoming our first guest, and no better place to start than our very own Mike Horrocks, who founded Simply Endo. We hope you enjoy this conversation coming up, and we look forward to introducing new guests to you further down the line.
Well, you know, I didn't want to do dentistry. I wanted to be a pilot. And Liverpool declined me. But my clinical experience was preparing gold shell crowns and inlays. So there's more to endodontics than endodontology and twiddling in their file. I ended up getting food poisoning, some of our delegates in the early days, which was probably not the most auspicious of starts. Yeah, that was really good. We want more. Well, let me say first, what an absolute honour it is to be here today, and that I'm over the moon to be helping you with this podcast idea. I think it's a fantastic thing, and I am hoping that sometime in the future you'll have some good speakers on here to share their views.
We can only try, can't we? We can only try.
Yeah. See, I'm sure that there are plenty of people out there who would provide lots of useful information. But anyway, Rob, you wanted to ask me something.
Yeah, we'll go right back. And why dentistry? Why did you think about dentistry? Where did that all come from?
Well, you know, I didn't want to do dentistry. I wanted to be a pilot. And that was a slight frustration in my life, in my early part of my life. But I think dentistry came out of the fact that I had a kind of medical interest in the family. And I don't think I was quite clever enough to get the required grades for medical school. And as you know, I wasn't really quite clever enough to get the required grades for dental school. I think in those days that you had to get something called B's, I think, to get into dental school in chemistry, physics and biology. And the first time I had to go at those A-levels, I think I got B, D, and D, of course, as you remember, was in physics, which I've always hated. Never quite understood what physics is all about. And Liverpool declined me, which was nice. I just had to go back and do the whole thing over again.
I didn't
another year,
Wow.
another year in sixth form. So I did 3 years of sixth form. Unfortunately, I spent most of that third year on the golf course. Because there's nothing quite as boring as redoing your A-levels when you've already just done them, particularly physics. But the net result was that when I redid them, I got BBE. So
well done.
The E in physics, so I actually got worse in physics. But I still passed. So I've ended up with 6 A-levels now, and 1 in general studies. That's seven A-levels I have. So I was expecting to be rejected by Liverpool, but I think they must have misread the sheet of paper they got from Newcastle or something, or wherever these results come from, because they said I was allowed in, and there you go. So I
Was it
started.
only Liverpool you applied to then, or was that the only one you
I can't
wanted?
remember now. It's a long time ago. Anyway, Liverpool had me, and I had 4 years and 1 term of them entertaining me and me entertaining them, which was good. And you know, it was kind of statutory that you applied for a house job in the final year, because that was looked upon as, you know, quite a sort of an achievement to get that. But it was only given to the stars of the show, so to speak. So lo and behold, how surprised was I when I actually got invited to be a house officer at Liverpool? So
Max facts.
no, just in the
duties,
dental hospital, doing the emergency clinic type thing. So that's how I started my dentistry career off, doing 6 months house job in the emergency department of Liverpool Dental Hospital.
So, didn't you win a prize at dental school for endo?
Oh yeah, I've forgotten about that. Remind me again. No, actually, what happened, I got this prize from the American Association of Endodontists in the final year.
I've seen the certificate, that's what that
Yeah,
is.
the certificate's in my office there, yeah, very proud of that. And I was awarded this by a very nice guy, Professor Jim Mumford, who was a pain specialist actually at LDH, and he came up and told me that I'd been awarded this as endodontic student of the year, and I hadn't got a clue why I'd won it. But so I had to ask, and the reason I won it was because I'd done twice as much endodontic treatment as anybody else in the final year. I'd done 2 cases, which amused me no end. And of course, I'd heard him say, "You won a prize in America," and I kind of thought, great, like a trip to Hawaii or something, or 2 weeks in Florida or something. So I asked what the prize was, and I was told that the university library would get a year's subscription to the Journal of Endodontics, which I was absolutely delighted about. I'll never forget that. I've never had any thanks from the university library. But so my prize was the certificate, which you just mentioned, Dave, is hanging up in my office above where I sit, and reminds me of those lovely days. Now, I love telling that tale because it's always kind of assumed that graduates in my day, we had lots of clinical experience, and we probably did. Clinical experience was preparing gold shell crowns and inlays, because that was kind of the requirements. You know, the whole thing about endo was very much on the back boiler, because I was very much taught that endodontic treatment didn't work, and that's the reason why we were kind of led to believe that you would never put a coronal seal onto a tooth post RCT, because like, what's the point? Because it's not going to work anyway, the endo. Yeah. So we were told to temporise teeth for up to 12 months. And then you get the patient back after 12 months, and if by some miracle the tooth was still there, then you might think about doing something more permanent. But I was reassured that it wouldn't be there. So that was kind of my grounding with endodontics, and it's fair to say that things have somewhat changed, haven't they, since those early days.
So the passion for endo wasn't sparked at uni then?
Well, it may have been, yes, because obviously I'd won that prize, which I don't know whether it was a message from something, above saying, this is where your future is, Mike. But I certainly remember my first 6 months in that house job. There was an awful lot of emergency endodontic treatment done, and dealing with pulps and things, exposed pulps, carious exposures, traumatic exposures, etc., etc. So there was a lot of interesting stuff done there, and pain management and trying to get people out of pain, and it was very, very interesting.
They're fantastic skills to learn, though, aren't they?
They are really, really useful skills to learn. Yeah, it's I'll hit the ground running, isn't it, type thing, and it was great, and it set me up nicely for starting to work in general practice, which was 6 months after I qualified. So I worked in South Liverpool there for 14 and a half years in NHS practice.
Was that the one you ended up buying?
Having a share of, yeah.
Share.
Yeah. So I did that until 1998. Worked in NHS general practice. But people who've listened to me and heard me over the years will know I had a pathological hatred of anything to do with dentures, and decided that dentures, if I never saw another denture, it wouldn't be soon enough. So I had to do something else. And if you kind of look through the various little interest areas in dentistry, endodontics is quite a nice little niche market where there's no dentures involved. So that's why I kind of started to focus in a little bit on endodontics. I did quite a lot of endodontics in general practice, but not the level you were doing after you switched to doing referral stuff. I had even some cases which involved me going to the GDC, which I think you've seen documented before I started any of the endodontic training. But I was also somehow I managed to become what was called postgrad tutor for the Northwest Deanery, run by John Lilly in Liverpool there, and I was tasked with arranging Section 63 courses for practitioners.
So
my home
base. The booklet, didn't you, with the pink slips in your
my home was the postgrad education centre at Clatterbridge Hospital. And, every month I had to run a programme. It wasn't necessarily on endo, in fact it was hardly ever on endo, but it was to do with things that interest general practitioners. So every month I was introducing other people, and there were about 100 practitioners there, and it was good. It was a really, really good thing. And then I got started talking to John Lilly, who happened to work at the endodontic department at the University of Manchester, and he said, why don't you come along and do a master's degree there? So that's how I did.
Really?
Yeah, and I started in 1998 and went through to the year 2000.
So had you sold the practice before then? Or?
No, still in practice then. Still in practice. I remember ringing my business partner then, Clive, still good friends with Clive, and telling him one afternoon over a phone call, I said, Clive, I'm off to do a master's degree at Manchester. We were expense sharing partners. No, not expense sharing, we were full sharing partners. And I said, I'm off to Manchester to do a master's degree in endodontology. And Clive said, oh, yeah, that's great. That's really good. That'll be nice for patients in the practice and everything. He said, how long is that going to take? I said, well, it's 3 days a week for 2 years. Silence on the phone. no, can I go, hello, are you still there? And he goes, yeah, I'm still here. I'm just wondering how it's going to take you 3 days a week for 2 years to learn how to twiddle a file. Which was his idea of what I think root canal treatment was about. But of course, as we know ourselves very well now, that there's more to endodontics and endodontology than twiddling a mere file. In fact, the whole subject of endo is at the core of restorative dentistry. And we know it's multifaceted. There are so many different topic areas, aren't there? And it's changing all of the time. It's really, really interesting. So anyway, off I trundled to Manchester 3 days a week for 2 years. And you can imagine when you're in the middle of your career what that does to your income. Mm. There's a certain amount that you have to pay for the university fees, which is like X amount. And then there's a certain amount which you lose because you're not working 3 days a week, which is like 10 times X. So the big issue has always been the amount of time commitment required to do a traditional red brick university master's degree. But I had a good teaching at Manchester. I learnt an awful lot there. There were plenty of times when I was trekking on the M62 in the darkness, traffic jams, 2 hours there, 2 hours back, and that's 3 days a week, 4 hours in the car. It's a lot. Wondering what on earth I'm doing it all for. But at the end of it, you do sit down and you think, actually, you do know a little bit about endo. And for some reason, I still to this day don't know why, the team at Manchester asked if I wanted to stay on and do some teaching of the actual programme. So I did that for 5 years.
So what, 3 days a week? Or?
No, it's 1 day a week I'd go in and I would do in the morning I'd do some lectures for 3 hours, theoretical stuff. And then in the afternoon do the hands-on stuff in the clinic with the master's students, supervising them. And that went on for about 5 years. But every year, 12 students, all from overseas, Middle East, Far East usually, would come to do full-time MSc programme. And they were good, they learnt a lot, and at the end of the 12 months they went back to their own countries. And another 12 students would arrive. Mm-hmm. And it was very, very good for other countries. Yeah. But as far as the UK was concerned, there were very few people who could basically give up practice in the middle of their career with the potential loss of earnings and things to go and do a master's degree. So that kind of got my sort of grey cells whirring around, thinking that we needed to create a programme which was more suited towards general practitioners in the UK, and that wasn't going to be based on 3 days a week for 2 years.
That's the problem, isn't it? With a lot of the courses, a lot of stuff there now, isn't it? It's just so inhibitory for people financially and loss of earnings, isn't it?
It's massive, isn't it? Yeah.
I think it's a huge issue. So we kind of sat down and we thought, well, let's take all of the really interesting stuff out of the master's programme, the stuff that's really clinically relevant, and expand on that a little bit and turn it into what we called at the time our 10-day programme. And that was, as you know, 2 days a month for 5 months. And that's kind of how the whole concept of simplyendo was based, and we would deliver that privately through an education company we would set up called simplyendo. And we would run it initially through hotels. But the initial venue, as you were reminding me this morning, was the yacht club at Liverpool Marina. And we had what looked like a greenhouse on top of the yacht club. And it wasn't a huge room. We had room for about 10 people in there, and we'd hired all the equipment, and it was good. I think the only problem was I think we ended up not we, but I think the yacht club ended up giving food poisoning to some of our delegates in the early days, which was probably not the most auspicious of starts.
So was that just one course a year at that point?
It was kind of like it was one course at a time, and let's see how it goes.
Right.
And how many people were on those early?
About 10.
Was it?
Yeah, about 10, and we marketed it by something called letters. And you would print out 5,000 sheets of A4 saying this is what we're going to do, and you stick them in envelopes and then stick a stamp on and stick it in the letterbox and then hope somebody would reply.
And at that stage, did you become, obviously with the practice, was much just referral endo then?
Yeah, because at the time, whilst I was teaching at Manchester, I decided to effectively just go to doing referral endodontics in practice. So I said goodbye to all of my existing patients who I treated for 14 years.
It's a big step. I bet that was a sleepless night.
Yeah, no, well, I didn't really say goodbye to them. I effectively said kind of au revoir, because if you want to come and see me, you can come and see me in the future as long as it's just for a root canal. But they were going to be seen by my colleague in the next surgery. So the patients were still coming to the practice, but they were being seen by somebody else. It was kind of like a slightly scary moment, because you go from being booked up. I mean, in those days we were booked up for 3 months, and nowadays you'll go, well, we're booked up for 10 months now, and I accept that. But we went from being fully booked for 12 weeks or so down to no bookings and an empty diary. And you kind of marketed your endodontic referral services in the same way we did the courses, with letters, envelopes, post, and just sat there and twiddled your thumbs until somebody came.
But it was Anita and Lorna at that point.
Yeah, Anita and Lorna were there at that point, yeah. And we all slightly panicked, but didn't need to panic really, because we were offering a good service. We looked after people, and soon the diary was busy, and soon we were booked up back to 3 months again, just doing private endo. Mm-hmm. So instead of seeing 30 patients a day, it's down to seeing 4 patients a day. And being able to take the time to do it, and having the luxury of the right equipment. And yeah, of course, everything didn't go right. We know in clinic things don't go right. We're dealing all the time with unpredictable events, aren't we? But you manage them and you learn from those things. And you learn and learn and learn, and that's how you get more experienced. So yeah, we developed the Simply Endo teaching concept at the same time as we developed the clinical part of it, the referral part of it.
One thing or the other.
Did one?
Did they complement each other?
Yeah, I think they complemented each other. Yes, and I think it's really important that if you're involved in teaching, that you also have an active clinical role as well. I think that's really important, and I think it's something we've kept going through Simply Endo through the years when we've onboarded good people like yourself, and of course you're in clinical practice yourselves, doing this day in, day out, so you know the issues that our delegates will be facing or are facing.
So there must have been quite a bit of excitement early on when you started doing those courses. There must have been quite a bit of excitement, thinking we're actually onto something here. This is working, and people are keen to do this.
It was really good fun, because I've never looked at teaching as a job. I've never looked upon it really as work. To me, it's a hobby. It's just a passion. It's so exciting. It's really nice to be able to share your experiences with other people and to help these people, because you do talk to people about the things that go wrong, and you hope by sharing those that they won't repeat the errors themselves, but of course they do, because we're all human at the end of the day, and it's kind of like, oh yeah, I remember Mike telling me not to do that, and yes, I've just done it. But they won't do it again. But I think it has been an enormous privilege to be able to do this, and to sort of grow that 10-day program. And of course, you started to notice on the back of people enjoying the program that people kind of wanted a little bit more, and that's when you started to think about taking this 10-day program and turning it into something a little bit more accredited, like a postgrad certificate or a diploma. Didn't think anything about a master's degree at that stage. And it just so happened that a guy called Brian Grieveson, who'd taken over from John Lilly at the deanery, came to see me one day and said, Mike at the University of Chester are looking to branch into dentistry, and they kind of think your program might be something that they're interested in taking on board and turning it into some sort of postgrad qualification. And so we kind of got introduced to each other, and 2 years of going to various committee meetings and not really understanding all the bureaucracy and paperwork required, but getting there in the end. And in 2007 we launched the PG certificate in endodontology at the University of Chester, which people who'd done the 10-day programme could kind of piggyback onto and allow them to get this additional qualification.
It's a long time, 2 years, to get it to what you need.
There's a lot of work involved in setting up a university programme, an awful lot of work when you think about module descriptors, programme handbooks, and all the various assessment strategies that are required, and setting up all of the various audit processes that are needed, including things like appointments of external examiners and things. It's a lot of work involved, and you know yourself, because you're doing it now, the ongoing paperwork that's required as well on a regular basis, just to process what we're doing on a day-to-day basis, a lot. But it's well worth it. It's really, really, really good. But of course, people did the certificates, and then you kind of going, well, that was really good, and they were going, yeah, that was really good, but we want more. So it's kind of like, okay, so we went back to Chester and said, well, is it possible to maybe increase the programme up to something a bit longer? Because the certificate you could do in a year, 2 days a month again. And Chester said, well, why don't you just, instead of just validating it to diploma, why don't you take it to master's degree? So I thought, yeah, well, why not? So we did. So more paperwork, more committees.
And how long did that, from that meeting to...
It probably took another 6 to 9 months to get all the required paperwork, because I was getting, I was very experienced at that stage. I'd already done it once. So doing it again, you kind of understood some of the language that the university were talking about. So you had a bit more of a clue. And so 2009 was when we got the programme validated for full masters, and that's when we started delivering that. And here we are now, 15 years later, and still going really, really strong. And that's such a well, you yourself know this, don't you? How people change as they go through the programme, how the whole attitude to the way they're doing their job, their ethos. Obviously, the way they're doing their endodontic treatments changes, but it's not just that, is it? It's all about their general attitude towards work, and we hope that they are starting to really enjoy what they're doing. Because I know when I first, when I was 10 years into general practice, I was getting disillusioned with the whole thing, and I think there's a lot of people like that. And a lot of it was due to the fact that in those early days after I qualified, there really wasn't much in the way of continuing professional development. These postgrad programs, there just weren't very many. You were expected to qualify, go and sit in a box, practice dentistry for 40 years and then retire. And the whole concept of doing that is just like terrifying.
You sort of could though, couldn't you? I'm not saying you'd want to do it, but you sort of could, because they didn't have the CPD the same and that sort of thing. So
well, there really wasn't any, and I still know from because I travel quite a lot at the moment, and I've been into Scandinavia for a bit recently. I know over there's no requirement to do CPD, and because there is no requirement, people tend not to do it, and then they start to get a little bit disillusioned about everything, or a little bit blasé about things. But I think I'm sure we've all sat there and thought, oh, goodness me, we've got to do these CPD hours. Actually, when you do them, you think, actually, I learned something now. It was worth doing. There's very few courses I've ever done where I thought, oh, I didn't really enjoy that. You might not have been looking forward to it. Well, there are maybe one or two. There are maybe one or two topics I can think of which may be a little bit drier than the rest.
I mean, I got that very early in my career as well. I noticed that, I started dentistry and I struggled quite a bit to start with, and I found it really hard. And I kind of quickly realised there were two types of dentists. There was those that did courses, invested in themselves, had passion and spark, and those that didn't. And yes, they've got big houses and fast cars, but they were thoroughly miserable. Mm-hmm. And the more you invest in yourself and the more you invest in the dentistry, the more you got out of it.
Yeah, and as I said, I've been really lucky, because I look upon the teaching now as just a complete hobby, and it's fantastic, and it's lovely to do it, and it's still a privilege. And that's why, here I am. I'm no spring chicken, but every day I still wake up. I'm happy to come to work, and I'm looking forward to the challenges the day's going to bring, which is great. And entertaining everybody, and people entertaining us. We had 3 groups in here today, haven't we? You've all been working really hard. I see the people; they're all engaged, really enjoying what they're doing. It's fantastic. Who would have thought that?
I never realised, and obviously seeing your passion to it, but I never realised when I first started working with you at simplyendo that I would get the same thing out of it. I never realised the effect that we have on people. And it was only probably over the last couple of years when some people had done things and said things, and you think, wow, we're making a massive difference to these people's careers and life and stuff, aren't they?
Which is even richer coming from you, because you being a U-plan.
Oh, don't be like that. Don't be like that.
Yeah, exactly. But
don't be like
I'm
that.
not sure that will be deleted from the final report. But after editing, there'll be a beep when the word U-plan's mentioned.
I was working at U-Clan at the time.
I mean, U-Clan's a fantastic place as well. And in fact, I'm going now at the end of next week just to deliver a lecture to the final year students and things. And it's nice to be able to sort of go out there and see what other institutions are doing as well. And we're all in this together. Everything's just trying to improve the standard of endodontic care in the UK.
Yeah.
So when we started off simplyendo, there were no modular programs for endodontic treating anyway. And now there's quite a lot. And I kind of think that they've looked at our model and really tried to sort of copy us, really. And, that there can't be any higher praise than that, I don't think. Because people like it, don't they? It suits general practice. General practitioners, they can do it. Yeah. It's doable.
And it's evolved so much, hasn't it? I mean, when I was doing the course, we were at the Village Hotel.
Yeah.
And then when I started certificate, it was Altrincham, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So was the move to Altrincham to allow for the university?
I'm just trying to think about the chronology of all this now, where Altrincham came into it. The move to Altrincham was to do with our dear friend Mark Hunter, who, as you all know, passed away, sadly. Far too young. He was an inspirational teacher, as those of us who were lucky enough to have met Mark will know all too readily. His passion for the subject was without equal.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
There's no doubt about it. And, I remember in my second year of doing my Masters in Manchester that he was on the clinic hovering over me at the time that the GDC inspectors were at the university. And no pressure. No.
So he'd done his MSc by then?
Yeah, he'd done his MSc a few years before me, and he was kind of hovering over me, watching me. I think I was doing a root canal on an upper lateral incisor. It was nothing too demanding, but he wanted to see my post-op radiograph, and as soon as I'd done it, he literally stole it from me and ran upstairs to the committee room where the GDC inspectors were, and basically showed it to the GDC guys and said, "Look, this is the sort of thing we're doing here at Manchester." And I don't know how influential it was, but they went on to get I think 24 out of 24. They got the top score, really high scores. So they did really, really well. Yeah. But that was the sort of enthusiasm that Mark had. He had no inhibitions at all about just sort of bludgeoning his way through everything and letting people know what a fantastic thing endo was. Yeah. And he looked after his patients wonderfully well. And when the opportunity came to do some work with Mark, because Mark was working in Altrincham, and we'd been working out of hotels at that stage, and didn't really have a home base. But the opportunity came up to run the programmes from the building in Ellesmere Road there, and to work with Mark, and that was an absolute privilege. And that's where Altrincham came from. And of course the programme itself grew considerably while we were in Altrincham, so maybe, I don't know the exact number of courses we were running before we started, but it didn't take very long before we were really feeling very squeezed or very cosy in Altrincham, in the sense of we needed more space. We only had 2,000 square feet there. Right. Spread over a couple of floors in a Victorian building.
Did it include the clinic space? Because there was clinic space.
Yeah, there was a couple of clinics in there as well. So it worked very well, and it certainly was a wonderful opportunity to work with a very fine gentleman, and also to allow us to grow simplyendo. But you kind of knew at the back of your mind that we needed to go to a bigger premises, and I spent a lot of time looking around Altrincham, looking around office space adjacent to motorway network. You'll be familiar with all of these standardised buildings that all look the same. You know, big open plan with lots of glass, look very nice and things, completely impractical for what we wanted. But the most impractical things were the parking spaces. They'll come with 4 or 8 spaces, and we needed like 30.
Yeah.
Which was just so you kind of think, well, I'm never going to find anything. And then one day I'm walking along this Freshfield Road here in Formby, my hometown, and I noticed that there's a teaching college available with 7,500 square feet with 30 parking spaces, and you sort of stand back and you go, no, surely, no way. And it was. And it happened, and it took a year of legal stuff to sort it all out, but we moved in here in December 2016, or we got the keys in December 2016. We actually started teaching here in the summer of 2017, because it took a long time for us to get all the infrastructure in place here.
So how long have you been looking?
A year at least a year. So, I've swapped my commute from Formby to Altrincham, which was a good hour and a half each way, for an 8-minute walk now, which is yeah. I thought I was going to miss the driving. I don't miss the driving at all.
Yeah, it's a hard drive, that is.
And I still get to drive to Manchester twice a month now, because I help with my dentist induction
We
program.
know how much you'll enjoy that drive, to be fair. The drive home.
I could do without it, to be honest with you.
It is hard, isn't it, Manchester?
Young Dave.
It is
I
hard.
can do without
It is
it, but yeah, just I have to leave here at stupid o'clock in the morning to avoid the rush hour, and then you get to Manchester at like 6:30 in the morning, and then you have to twiddle your thumbs for an hour and a half. Okay, you finish early, but it's a long day still.
Yeah.
But it's that's another real privilege to be able to help out. Teaching these younger dentists.
With obviously you mentioned Mark about. I know Mark was fantastic with his enthusiasm, and obviously Mark started teaching on the program as well. How did that come about? Because it was just you originally then.
Yeah, well, I needed some help, some support, and there was no better person than Mark to do that. Because I think people know that I'm slightly enthusiastic about endo, but Mark was on a completely different level. He was very, very passionate about the subject. Very strong views as well, which were absolutely fine. I'm not sure his views and my views were always aligned, but I mean, that doesn't matter. It's perfectly okay to have a professional disagreement about things. But, everything he did was just top notch, and very, very, very nice guy. Very nice guy, and a terrible loss.
I remember seeing some composites he'd done, some upper anterior composites he'd just done on someone, and they were phenomenal. And you see all these people doing all this composite bonders and stuff, and he'd just done it.
Yeah.
It was amazing. Yeah.
I remember talking with Mark many, many years ago about what's now called DME.
Yes.
Because we kind of thought, well, because we'd all heard you must put the crown margin onto sound tooth tissue, and you go, well, I can't see where the sound tooth tissue is. You're always kind of struggling, and you think, why don't you just put an amalgam down there, or bond something on there if you can, and stick the crown margin on top of the restoration, but don't tell anybody. Don't tell anybody. But of course now it's DME, isn't it, and well recognised as a. But these a lot of the techniques I think that people are using now, we kind of road tested them a long time ago. Probably before we should have been road testing them, but why not? It stood the test of time, worked really well.
And then you brought Steve on then, didn't you? Steve came lecturing.
Yeah. He was one of our first delegates.
And Dave Blaine.
And Dave, they were some of our first delegates. And they I remember Steve joined the programme because he hated endo. Absolutely hated it. Wouldn't go anywhere near endo, and then ended up doing nothing but endo. And working in a community clinic, wasn't he? Doing endo and teaching endo, and still is helping out significantly with the programme, isn't he, in the background now? And Dave as well, Dave Blaine, yeah. They also did some clinic. Dave Blaine was in the clinic at Manchester as well, working for us.
Right.
So met lots of really good people. Of course, Dave Blaine decided to retire. Shame.
I know.
But good for him.
Yeah.
But it was a real loss to Simply
It was
Endo,
around the
because
time
he was
we
a
moved here.
very nice chap.
Yeah.
Very
He was
nice
good,
chap indeed.
So there must have been some sleepless nights bringing it over here, wasn't there?
Of course, yeah, because we were committing a lot for a long time coming here, and Manchester is very central, good airport connections, good road network, but in a way that was also its nemesis, because whilst you have a good road network, if there's too many cars on that road, the road network is not very effective. And one of the problems was that people could take an hour to drive a mile, in rush hour, and it was just crazy. So we even actually changed the program timings, didn't we?
Yeah.
To start an hour earlier, just to avoid the traffic.
So I mean, where do you see it all going now? Then Simply Endo, dentistry, AI.
I think dentistry is an amazing subject. I think it's I think people starting off a dental career now have got a fantastic career ahead of them, and I think it's supported by an amazing array of postgrad educational programs, potential opportunities for them to specialise in the various subcategories of dentistry. And I think at the end of the day, it's all going to result in better patient care. That's the theory. My concern, and I suppose the concern for everybody who cares about the health of patients, is the access to this is very limited now because of the issues of NHS dentistry. And I don't think there's any way of beating around the bush there. There are real problems in many parts of the country with patients getting access to NHS dentistry. And there's a lot of people out there who simply, the option of going private is just not available to them. So I imagine there's a lot of people out there who don't have routine dentistry, and I think that's a crying shame. Because what dentistry can offer patients now is just on a completely different level to what we were taught 40 years ago. Completely, and that's not just in endo; that's in all aspects, as you two know anyway. The drive towards digital dentistry is very exciting, and will offer lots of new opportunities. In endodontics, I think we all appreciate that whilst this drive towards this thing called MIE, or minimally invasive endodontics, it may be the best thing since sliced bread, or it may not be. I think at the moment the research is very mixed about the benefits of MIE, and I'm personally not convinced by the advantages of trying to work through a tiny little hole in the occlusal surface, down tiny little canals trying to clean them. I think I look back to the days when we were making bigger holes in occlusal surfaces and bigger taper preparations, and I don't really remember teeth falling apart in the clinic and things. On the back of us doing that. But I do sometimes wonder whether a lot of the solutions we have are to problems that we never really existed. But again, that's kind of the test of time may prove that I'm completely wrong and that MIE is fine. But I think what is really exciting at the moment, and I don't think any of us got any doubt about it, is the potential for things like vital pulp therapy and trying to maintain the vitality of various bits of the pulp, and the indications for doing that are increasing all of the time. So I think the idea of us having to fish out our endodontic files and reamers or nickel titanium reciprocating or rotary files to fish out a pulp and do a pulpectomy, I think there will still be plenty of opportunities to do that, but I don't think there'll be quite as many as there were historically, because we should be keeping pulps alive. At the end of the day, I think we're all agreed the best obturation material is something called the pulp.
Yes.
And that kind of gets away from all of the issues we've currently got with which sealer's best, what are the properties of sealers, blah, and what obturation materials and what obturation technique, and white lines. Like, we always used to get obsessed with white lines on radiographs. No. So I think endodontics is really exciting, but it's I think we as teachers, it's our prerogative. We've got to make sure we keep up to date with all this, and that we are able to share this knowledge with our delegates. And that's one of the things that I'm really enjoying at the moment is travelling around not going too far, but going to places in Europe, going to obviously Glasgow recently, and then we went up then to Paris, and I was in Stockholm earlier, and I'm going potentially back to Paris again next month. All these opportunities to learn all the latest stuff in endo and how it's developing is really exciting. And coming back and sharing that information with you, I think, and some of it won't stand the test of time, but a lot of it will, and particularly this bit about vital pulp therapy, I think that's very exciting. Mm-hmm. So, guys, you've made me talk a lot here. You've nothing to say yourselves.
I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying it.
We've got a couple more questions.
More questions? Well, it's good because there's things that I didn't have a clue.
I'm very glad that I got a cup of tea before.
There's only a few minutes left.
I suppose we get lots. We're really lucky. We get lots of support from industry, from the various companies and stuff.
Yeah,
Simply Endo.
we do.
I suppose the question was asking: have there been challenges with that over the years? So have there been challenges towards Simply Endo?
There's not really been. I think one of the things that I realised right from early days was that we needed the support of the trade. We needed to have a good relationship with the people who were responsible for making the equipment or the materials that we're using in day-to-day practice. And we've been very, very lucky. We've had a very, very good working relationship with, lots of dental companies, and they've always been extremely kind to us and very helpful. And we've created like a win-win scenario because we've welcomed these people into our teaching centre. We've introduced these people, these companies and their representatives to our cohorts. Our cohorts have enjoyed having them there, and we've been able to share knowledge about the various materials and equipment that we've got in an atmosphere where we're not selling anything. We can just tell people our honest opinion about product A, product B, and it's good, bad, and the ugly, isn't it? If it's good, we'll tell them. If it's bad, we'll tell them. If it's ugly, we'll tell them. Yeah. And those at the end of the day are only our own personal opinions only. But I think it's useful for people to have that. But yeah, you're right. The trade's been absolutely invaluable, and we certainly wouldn't be where we are today without the help of lots and lots of people. I've made so many good friends over the years and met so many people. On courses abroad and courses in the UK, and so this reason I'm potentially visiting Paris again next month is to see a private endodontic teaching centre that one of the delegates I've met through a Dentsply event has set up there, and it'll be very nice to see how her experiences match what we've been doing as well. So it's great to be able to do this. But you're right, it's down to very much mutually, I was going to say mutually satisfactory arrangement, that's really understating it. It's been enormously, I'm trying to think of the word here, it's just been, symbiotic, but it's not really symbiotic. It's just been an amazing relationship we've had with these people. And challenges, I don't think we've had any challenges, no, not really. No, I think everyone's been really, really friendly, really helpful, and it's worked very well.
I love when you're talking about Glasgow, when you went to Glasgow, the amount of people that come in and you bump into them, and if you don't know them, they know of us and they chat about us.
Yeah, I know, it was very humbling, that wasn't it? Very humbling experience that was. Yeah. To realise, I suppose, what the level of impact that we've actually had. I probably secretly think that you two have been out there selling free tickets to Glasgow to all the Simply Endo delegates.
It's good, wasn't it?
There were a lot of Simply Endo delegates there, weren't there? And people I haven't seen for a long, long time. No, that was amazing. That was amazing.
It's sort of you might. I wonder if you'll come back to flying with this one. Maybe you won't. But I was asked to do a presentation during COVID. It was an online thing, and it was about what advice. I found it really difficult. What advice you would give to your younger self? And do you have any advice you'd give you, sort of things you'd change or do differently, or would you?
I saw that actually because I kind of saw that question mentioned earlier about whether I change anything, and so I've had a bit of time to think about that. It's a very simple answer. No. Wouldn't change a thing. No,
So you might have said been a fighter pilot. Or,
no.
was it a commercial
No.
pilot you wanted to be?
No, I just wanted anything to do with. I just liked aeroplanes and anything to do with aviation, and you're well aware that I actually sort of nipped that in the bud by going off and doing a PPL, a private pilot's license program back in the mid-90s, and graduated after a flight test at Liverpool Airport, which was involved me spinning an aircraft over the Welsh mountains from about 6,000 feet down to 3,000 feet, which was truly terrifying and was completely unnecessary, but the instructor thought it would be fun, which was nice of him. But yeah, I think it's important to have another interest in life outside of root canals, because it can become a bit obsessive at times, can't it? And flying for me was that kind of release, as was golf as well. You know, Rob, that I like golf and always have done. But no, I wouldn't change anything I've done in my professional career, no. I think everything's kind of happened for a reason. There's been occasions you've mentioned where there were kind of like heart flutter moments where you've done a few things and you thought, not sure whether this is the right move. But, with the passage of time, everything works out okay. And I think if, somebody else was thinking about trying to do something similar, I think one of the things that I make a strong point about is it requires the most incredible amount of hard work. You know yourselves that when people come and sit down around the tables in this room that we're sitting in at the moment and start to receive or start to do the program with us, we have done an awful lot of work in the background to make sure that the experience they get is the best one they can get, that the materials they've got are available to them, that the infrastructure is there for us to deliver the program. And it doesn't happen by itself. And it's all being created that by the wonderful team we have here at Simply Endo. And I think that's probably the most important part of this whole podcast, is that we need to talk about the team we have here at Simply Endo. Because you kind of said we want to talk to you about your experiences and things, and yes, it's okay to do that. I'm happy to go through that. But really the reason we are here today is because of you good folk. The girls that we have here, the team that we've developed over the years, the fact that, Anita, Lorna, we've been working together for way over 30 years now, which is kind of bonkers, isn't it? Yeah. And people that come, they come and they join the team, and everybody who comes and joins us adds something extra to the team, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. And that has made such a huge difference.
And through the moves as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Through going from Liverpool to Altrincham.
Yeah, I think yeah, they have moved with us as well. You're right, and that shows, I suppose, the loyalty that we have to them and that they have to us, and it works really, really well together. But Simply Endo is Simply Endo not because of the thing that we're delivering, the information we're giving to people, although it's fascinating what we're talking about. It's not that, and it's not the building, it's the people. It's the team that we have that makes Simply Endo what it is. And I think that's really the most important thing. So I think if I was to say younger person, just get yourself a good team as soon as possible and get yourself part of that. And yes, there'll be good days, there'll be bad days, and there'll be challenges, as there always are. But you'll come out at the end of it and everything will be fine. I think that's the way to look at it. But boy, oh boy, you've got to be prepared to roll up your sleeves and do lots of hard work. And sometimes that means working. How many days a week are there? 7. Yeah. 7 days a week, and sometimes many hours of those 7 days a week. And there's been plenty of time I've said to my family, next year will be easier. Next year will be easier. And it's probably only in the last 5 years that that's come true. Because prior to that, you two know it as well, you're 20 years behind me here, so you're still in that phase of working many, many hours. Young families, trying to balance time with the family, but trying to balance time with your passion for endodontics and passion for dentistry. And that's the biggest challenge that you have, time management sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Fantastic. Absolutely brilliant.
Well, thanks, guys,
But
for inviting me. Oh, I thought that was it.
It felt like a good finish, that, didn't it? But there is another question with it, which I don't know whether...
We might if you could only have a very simple question.
I'm going to talk.
It's a bit more like detail of endo, this, isn't it? Which I quite like Mike talking about, so good.
You can only have, you're stuck on a desert island, which I know you
Oh, no, I'm not doing this again.
One file system, what would it be? You only have one.
I often get asked this question, which file system is better? And I always say, what do you mean, rotary or reciprocating? And they go, I don't mind, which file system's better? And I always say to people, you know what, I don't care what file system you use, as long as you follow the commandments of canal shaping. And I've got this slide with 3 rules on it, haven't I? The one's written by Herb Schilder, I think back in 1974, in that pivotal paper. First commandment, prepared canal shall include the original canal and be of similar shape. Second commandment is about the apical constriction being maintained, and the third commandment is about the canal shape shall taper conically from the orifice to the apex. And I really don't care what file system you use, as long as you end up with that result. Because you know what? The important thing about Simply Endo is we are not teaching systems here. We teach principles, and those are the principles of endodontics. What we also show people is how to take systems and apply those systems to the principles. But it's the principles that matter. Thank you, guys.
Case cleanse it is then, Rob. Fantastic. That. Yeah,
Thank you so
really
much,
good.
Mike.
What a great answer.
Thank you.
I wasn't sure what you'd say to that last one. Fantastic. Thanks for your time, Mike.
Yeah.
It's all right.
I
Totally
really enjoyed
that.
listening to that, I have to say. I'm sure loads of people are going to find that fascinating.
Well, hopefully you'll be able to edit most of it out.
Yeah.
And, absolutely.
Hello and bye.